Alright, first and foremost, I'm going to say all praises be to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Rakah Kodash. And then I'm going to say double honors to the apostles and elders, great most of Shalom to the sincere elect, teaching the truth and faith and sincerity. Quick topic I want to speak on. It's actually based upon this whole racial tension and the spirit of race war like in the air, and just what's been happening, with these protests around certain parts of the UK, and just the tension that's in the air, because right now there's a lot of tension in the air between these British Baconites and people from migrant backgrounds, whether it be Jake, whether it be Elam or anybody, And recently, this past week, there was a case in which in Scotland, you had a Scottish man, whether it's a false flag or whatever it was going around attacking Muslims. And, you obviously recently had the information I got brought out of that, Sikh male who, put to death a British, a Polish man, so-called white man, and just the tension in the air, because it's really thick right now. And really the inspiration for this video on this topic was really based upon this past week, man. I was in a certain part of the UK, doing some shopping, and I was on the phone to a brother, and we were just talking about these women out here being puffed up and proud, and how they're super entitled in the dating world, and they're expecting men to do this and men to do that. And a random Scottish man who I've never met before, he slightly kind of overheard a bit of what I was saying, and he just jumped into the conversation with me and vented his frustration. And he was mentioning, how the women these days are so proud, they're so entitled, and it's down to weak leadership of this country and how they've let things go. But then he himself started touching on these race wars and tensions, and what he said unto me was, look, this system and government is weak, and race wars are coming, basically. And he said, look, race wars are coming, and I'm ready, And I said, what do you mean by you're ready? He said, well, I'm ready, and I got 5 guns and a crossbow. I'm ready to fight. And I was like, all right, yeah, hey, He's like, hey, and to be honest, man, it depends on what side of the fence you're on, but I'm ready. That's what he said. And I said, hey, bro, yeah, hey, hey, cool, man. I was just, I didn't really give an opinion, or anything. I was just letting him vent, basically. But anyway, the conversation ended and it filtered out. But I just thought that was spiritual, because there are a lot, when you're out and about and you're looking at these people's eyes, especially these, Edomites and people in general who've been, and obviously a lot of these white jakes as well, that have been, fed, the propaganda on the screens, feeling like the country's been taken over and the whole nine. And these Edomites in general feeling like they're an existential threat. That tension is out here in this air. And it just ties into the scriptures in regards to that spirit of race wars and racial tensions. Because even the part that I was at in the UK, it isn't a part that, has as much shine as other parts of the UK. Well, it just shows you in these random towns around, a lot of people are so-called indoctrinated, and a lot of people are basically ready to go, man. You know, so before I get into the scriptures, man, I want to play this video about this recent attack, you know, that was taking place in Scotland.
Protecting the country from these fucking little bastards raping our young daughters, raping our kids. Enough is enough.
And it's like, look, man, you know, we as Israelites don't care about these Muslims, but to just respond to what this guy's saying, you know, he's sick and tired of these Muslims raping our women and raping our children and blah blah blah, when the biggest face of rape and abusing of children is the so-called white man, whose seed goes back to that of Esau. But this guy, man, you can see he's just been hyped up, perked up behind his computer, and he's chimped out. Now again, this was probably a false flag, but still, you know, this action here of this man encapsulates a lot of the feeling of a lot of people in the UK and around the world in general. You know,
Protecting the country from these fucking little bastards raping our young daughters, raping our kids. Enough is enough. I have had enough.
apparently this guy was just going around trying to attack people who looked Muslim or migrants in general. And it's like, you know, and just how he's doing attacks, you know, this individual, you know, is doing attacks. There's obviously many more people around the UK, these little towns, that are indoctrinated too and are trained, are ready to go, you know, because of these psyops. Just how there will be probably many Muslims or people in different backgrounds who feel like, hey, now we must protect ourselves. All these sentiments tie into the scriptures of this coming time. We're at an end, you know, and more of these tensions are going to increase, and people will do these things, all right, you know, in retaliation to the government and stuff. But we, as the Hebrew Israelites, obviously here at Great Millstone, we are not going to get involved in any such thing, and we teach to be spiritual. But what we do is commentate on what's happening because it's prophecy. So without further ado, man, I'm gonna read some scriptures. All right, this is 2nd Ezra 13:29. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth, and it shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell upon the earth, and one shall undertake to fight another, to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, one realm against another. So obviously the scripture says the Lord's going to send fire upon the earth, and what will I if it be already kindled? You know, because before the Lord comes, there are many things that are going to be taking place upon the earth. You know, mass, you know, starvation and famine and cannibalism. You know, mass natural disasters and much more. But then even in this aspect, you know, with the racial tensions and racial kind of elements, all right, that's all going to be happening, man. You know, the earth already as it is divided, man. You know, even these Edomites in general, they are divided. You know, everyone's divided out here, man, and it's spilling out into the streets. You see, if we get Second Ezra 15 and 14, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and tools in their hands. And that's exactly it. All right, people, people shall stand up and fight against another. You know, if you got two groups of people feeling that there are an existential threat, what do you think is going to happen? People are going to feel like they're backed into a corner and that they have to fight. So whether it's migrants, taking arms and feeling like they have to do that, or the average Joe white man who's pumped up in their head with false flags and false narratives, thinking they're a threat, they are going to feel like they are a threat, and they are going to they will feel like they need to now stand up for themselves, because they're taking our country, they're raping our women, they're doing this, when the biggest face of being a thief is the so-called white man. The biggest face of being a rapist is them too. But again, Esau is running his psyops, and a lot of them are emboldened and are inspired by guys like Tommy Robertson, and even situations just like this. Anyway, it says, for the sword and it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action start standing in their power. So it's going to be like Mad Max out here, bandit man. Especially when you mix in the financial global economic crash, right? People feeling that threat, people in that, being with their own people mindset. People go crash the fuck out, man. I've seen it, before with my eyes, man. I remember a couple of years ago, in my childhood, when the Tottenham London riots, was happening. The London riots was happening, and there was riots all throughout London, and it was burning down shops and burning down businesses. But what spilled over the next couple of days was the Turkish was with the Turkish, protecting themselves and their businesses. The Elam Pakistanis and Indians was with their own people, protecting their businesses. The Somalians was protecting their own businesses. The whites was, the Edomites was protecting their own businesses. And even the other Edomite dominant parts of the UK started to have like a neighborhood watch of like white men with tools and knives and weapons, just strolling around in their own areas, so-called protecting themselves. You see, race in certain people, which we know the real your race is your seed, man. Your arousing your nation, your people. That's really what your race is. But obviously, these people are confused because they're in gross darkness. Especially the lies of Esau. So they take that race down to just your so-called color, right? But the point is, the whole topic of race, people try and avoid and try and pretend that it's not a big thing. Like that, people try and pretend that race is not a factor at all, when it really fucking is, bro. Race is a big deal out here. And people may try and hide and pretend that, there ain't these differences. Well, when there is, but guess what? It comes up during the midst of a crisis or conflict. During the midst of a food shortage or a natural during a natural disaster or tragic event, it comes right back up. All right. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, their houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. That's it. Especially in these major cities, because that's what these major cities are, the major melting pots. So in these melting pots, these are battlegrounds, man. These are going to be battlegrounds because you have all these people in these tight, big cities who are exposed to different people and are from different cultures. So if you mix in a crisis, a natural crisis, a disaster, food shortage, or whatever it may be, mixed in with all the propaganda, with all the AI generated stories, you know what I mean, that's on people's feeds and algorithm, people gonna crash out and feel justified in doing it. People gonna be like Chud the builder said, that freak. People gonna be chimping out, man. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread and great tribulation. And it's like, even if you look at what's happening in South Africa, you know, in the anti-migrant sentiment where they're kicking out Nigerians and Ghanaians and beating them up and stuff. These are obviously the effects of being pumped by the propaganda of Esau and his elites, of where people are blaming the lack of resources and stuff on migrants, when it's not. It's your elites that have engineered this crisis, man. You see? But that's the spirit that's in the air. But again, when I spoke with that Scottish guy, and he just randomly jumped into my conversation and vented, he said it. This guy's in a part of the UK that you don't really expect them kind of characters to be on that level anyway. He said, look, man, I got 5 guns and a crossbow. I'm ready for this race war. I was like, oh shit. Alright. Cool, man. I just let him vent. And he said, it just depends what side of the fence you're on. I was like, alright, yeah, man, cool. You know, I just letting him talk. Alright, so this is Isaiah 13:4. And it says, and it shall be and it shall be as a chase row, as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people and flee into his own land. And obviously you have a lot of people who are from different parts, you know, different parts of the world that are in Europe and these major places that are going back to their own countries. But in general, people are in the mindset of sticking with their own, sticking with their own people, because as equally as people try and be as we're all one and this and that, when crisis season society as we know it breaks down, people will turn to their natural instincts, which is sticking with their own. You know, so hey, it's gonna be interesting, man. You know, as these months go ahead and flee everyone into his own land. Everyone that shall be found to be thrust through, and everyone that join unto them shall fall by the sword. Alright. Their children shall also be dashed to pieces before their eyes, and their wives shall be spoiled, and wives, and the houses shall be spoiled, and wives ravished. And again, when things, you know, I believe it was in I forgot, you know, the Joker, he kind of said, you know, with these, when these crises happen, these civilized people that seem so civilized, they will eat each other, man. When a bandit line comes out, that's when the bandits are going to be out. Now we, as the hopeful elect, we ain't going to be involved in these so-called race wars. You know, the Lord is going to protect and provide for our families. But that's what's coming to this modern society, man. The leaderships are divided, and now If the leadership is divided, then the people are. If you're Labour and Conservative, if you're the Democrat and Republican, these are the side effects of a two-party system, where this party is blaming that party and this party is blaming the next party, where this neighbor is blaming that neighbor and this neighbor is blaming that other neighbor. But this is all signs and prophecies anyway, you see, of the times. This is I'm gonna finish anyway with 2nd Ezra 9, right? It says 2nd Ezra 9:1, it says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when I see part of the signs past which I have told thee before, then shall I understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people of the world, then shall I well understand that the Most High spake of these things the days before thee, even from the beginning. You see? These uproars, these splits in the people, the splits in the mindset. It's all happening, man. So, hey, with that, I'm going to say all praises be to Yahweh Shemel Shaiba Shemakah Kodash. That will honor to the apostles and elders. Most told until next time, I'm going to say Shalom.